It's the 24th of July 2010, and we're continuing this World War II interview with Hod Hudson. And go ahead, Hod. You were telling us about a couple of papers you brought.
Yeah, well, actually, with my Cork Tree community story, Remmel was one of our tent mates that was shot down in on February 6, 1945, and I have a story on him that I just was going to give a copy to each one of you guys.
Okay.
So,
And where's the picture of him again?
right there.
Okay. In
Yeah,
this.
that's our Cork Tree community. This is Remmel shaving by our washstand that we built around the base of the tree.
Okay. And was he a pilot?
Yeah,
And you lost him.
yeah.
Were you on that same
I
mission?
was, yeah, that's when I went into Pisa on that same mission.
That was an awful tough mission. It sounds like.
It was, yeah. Now, it was kind of interesting, Remmel, when he went down, after he was hit, he was kind of in a tight spiral. And of course, it's very, very difficult to get out of an airplane in a tight spiral. He got the airplane righted long enough for his crew to get out, except for his co-pilot, and they crashed, the two of them. But the other five, well, he was a lead pilot. The other five got out. His one gunner then that read my story later on in life, and he wrote me a letter then and told me about Remmel being such a great pilot, and how Remmel saved his life by riding the airplane long enough for them to bail out. And then so I have a attached here.
Why don't you read that letter?
Well, it gets
Is
pretty
it that long?
Yeah. I could read parts of it. I was with Remmel on his last mission. Les Spear was the new fella. That was the co-pilot that hadn't come overseas with him. I still recall after we were shot down and captured, the German officer interrogating me, asked why we were carrying 7 crew members instead of the usual 6. And then he went on to say, I still see in my mind, just before bailing out, Remmel's face and looking at his hands, and him attempting to maintain the airplane, control of the airplane. I remember pushing out the navigator, who was pinned in and half out of the escape hatch due to the force of the spin. I also remember the effects I had fighting the centrifugal force prior to jumping. Okay, has he gone here now? As you may know, Remmel is buried in the U.S. military cemetery in Florence, Italy. I was very fond of Remmel. He was always the gentleman. He was the old man of 23, and I was a younger fellow of 19. Many years have passed, and I have thought him of often. His success at maintaining control of our airplane, I feel, saved my life and the life of other crew members. Many years have passed, and since I cried for him, his wife Hildred and their son, that fateful day. When I read your article, I cried again. I called Earl Peck, the editor of the magazine, to get your address, and then he wrote to me, of course, from then. But I got to go on to this a little bit. I guess I didn't, oh, here we are, yeah. Okay, now this, his name, the guy that I'm talking about, started a scholarship in Remmel's name then in his school. He came from, Remmel was from Hooker, Oklahoma. And so he started a scholarship in his, and to honor the memory of Captain Earl Howard Remmel. And
Now you wrote, excuse me, you had a letter on the back side here to dear Isidore.
okay, that's, yeah, that would be my letter to him then.
To him, okay.
Yeah. In other words, I guess what we're trying to say that, you know, that after being a crew member and coming, he was a prisoner then and coming back. And then later on in life now, leaving a scholarship in Remmel's honor at Oklahoma. And so I've attached, I've attached that copy then, that story is in one of our magazines.
Okay, I know you mentioned the magazine, but what was his, was he in the same flight as you, or in the same?
Remmel was leading in the first box of 9 airplanes, making his run first. And I was behind him with a box of 9 airplanes.
So you guys were both lead pilots at that time?
Yes.
And did you have any relationship before you both got to Corsica, or?
No,
That was it.
I met him when I moved into Corsica and moved into that tent, you know. We were all moving in at the same time.
How did, okay, that really bad day that was that in the Brenner Pass, when you lost those 6 planes?
Rovereto in the Brenner Pass.
Okay, how many airmen went down, and how many guys actually made it, survive that?
Sure. Well, we lost 6 airplanes on the mission. The survival, you know, a number of those people would have been prisoners. Now, I'm not familiar with all of the people that after being prisoners, whatever happened to them. I'm familiar with some of them, you know, but not all.
So actually, all those 6, would most of them, do you think most of them survived that, those 6 airplanes?
Yes, I would think so.
Another question is, from what you heard from the guys who went down, for example, Remmel who came back, how did they feel the Germans? Did you get any word on how the Germans treated them as prisoners?
Yeah, it varied an awful lot. Like when crewmen went down and the friendly partisans then would hide them, and like one Italian town then, that they hid some people, and the Germans threatened to shoot every male in that town unless somebody came through with the information where these guys were hiding. And I have record of that in one of my reunion books, but that's not a lot. And so even orders from higher headquarters in Germany to destroy these people, that if they didn't come up with people that were crew members hiding down. One of my co-pilots that flew with me that later on got shot down, he ended up in the Brenner Pass, and the friendly partisans got civilian clothes for him, and he pretended he was deaf and dumb, and he got on a train and rode to the Swiss border, made it into Switzerland, and was interned in there till the end of the war. See, anybody end up in Switzerland was a neutral country, and they were interned until, you know, like the last 2 months of the war, they started coming out of there. Then what it looked like, we had it one. But that's just a good example, you know.
So if but as far as being, you guys had a certain fear of being taken prisoner.
Yes.
Of the Germans, because they were would you say there was a certain amount of brutality, or did, or
Yeah,
was
as
what?
far as we knew, the German SS troops were very violent that way.
Okay,
Was part of the danger of being shot down and captured by the Germans just that first initial encounter? I mean, once you got to the POW camp, your odds of survival probably went up, right?
Much better, sure.
So
it was more the original, and not only with the Germans, but with civilians too, you know. Not with us so much, because we were bombing over countries that really, like Italy, then we had the friendly partisans that were, you know, for us. But the crews got shot down over Germany, they could easily be destroyed by the civilians.
So it'd be that initial disposition or attitude of those first
Yeah.
people that you came in contact
A
with.
lot of our deal was, you know, you lie in the snow in the mountains, you know, what's the chance of survival?
yeah.
So rather than freeze to death, people maybe shot themselves, you know, we all carried a 45.
Just for example, now, would you describe that you had survival training? What kind of training was involved in survival training for you?
I recall none,
None.
none. No.
So in other words, they gave you a 45. What else did you have to?
We had a packet that we carried that had some survival gear in it, like candy bars and, you know, special type
Something
thing
to
like
light a
that.
fire with and that kind of
Yeah.
stuff? Okay, okay.
Survival kit is what, we'd be issued a survival kit in the morning as we went on the mission.
Yes, it's kind of odd you wouldn't get a few days of survival training, you'd think, but just not, that just wasn't a part of the program.
No, it wasn't, no, no. You might have had some lectures on it, you know, I'm sure that could have been, but nothing out in the open that you were doing.
But that did become a part of the Air Force's training, didn't it?
Sure it did, yeah.
Okay.
So then you would have been okay probably with going with a career in the Air
Yeah,
Force.
well, getting back to that, you see, now, when I got out then of December of 46 or November of 46, the Air Force, people that had got out a year before that, had all the jobs with the airlines. So there was a huge waiting list. So if I made a mistake, it was getting out, instead of getting out in the fall of 45, it was getting out in the fall of 46.
What could have you been separated right away? Could you
Yeah.
separate a lot sooner?
Oh yeah, I could have got out right away, you know, as soon as the war was over in Japan. But you see, in my particular case, my parents had lost the farm in the Depression, and they still live there. But the people that owned it, you know, allowed them to. They had a place on the lake, and they allowed them to keep interest up with commodities. They got their eggs and their butter and their milk from us and things like that. So, you know, so when I was home on leave then in December of 43, when I got out, when I graduated as a cadet, well then we started right away. I started paying $100 a month to pay off the farm. And then after I got to be a captain, I was making $200 a month. Well, you see, compare that to the fall of 45, if I'd have got out to an airline job of $165 a month as a co-pilot, which was about standard for those years.
And you were saying you got up to 400.
And I was making 400 then, so that had a lot to do with me too, because by the way I had it set up, by the spring of 47, June of 47, when I was going to get out, then I would have had the farm totally paid for, and
You would have bought the farm back.
yeah.
Wow.
Mhm.
Now,
And of course, my parents made their living there, so to me, you know, it was a good investment for me. That was for sure. It was forced saving, which, you know, that's the best thing you have in life when you're trying to save money, if it's forced, because So my parents made their living there until 1957, when my dad was 77 years old. And then I brought them out. We bought our first home in Grafton then. See, we lived at the airport the first 6 years. And I brought them to the airport to live then.
Wow.
And then, so, you know, then I sold the farm. I'd paid $5,500 for it plus whatever interest, and I sold the farm for $9,000.
Yeah,
That same farm now would, you know, go for $170,000 or
Yeah, yeah.
$200,000.
yeah.
Huh?
How many acres was that?
170.
Okay,
100 acres cleared land and 70 was woodland pasture.
okay.
Okay, do you have any idea, the airline industry was really sort of in its infancy though, right?
It was, yeah.
And Northwest Airlines would have been considered a major airline.
Sure it was.
But in reality, if you added up all the airplanes and all the pilots that the civilian airliners needed, I mean, would have been 2,000 or 3,000 pilots at the most, or
At the most, I would think, yeah.
I mean,
Like,
did
for
Northwest would Northwest even have a couple hundred airplanes? Would they have that many?
You know, I don't know. I think they would have by that time of the war because of the effect of the war, you know, with more flying going on. But I couldn't make an educated guess at all. I can say this, that John Carlson, who was John O'Keefe's co-pilot in combat, he came back and got on with United Airlines early. Bill Hansen, who I mentioned on the phone, that was back for his mother's 97th birthday.
Okay.
Bill Hansen, I taught to fly when he was in high school. And he sprayed for 1 year, and then he got on with Butler Construction in Fargo as their company pilot, flying at 310, built up his twin engine time. Bill ended up with United Airlines, and at United Airlines you first flew as a flight engineer, and then as a first pilot, and then as a captain. So his first captain was John Carlson, who was in my bomb squadron, or my bomb group, I should say, in combat. And that was John O'Keefe's co-pilot.
Yeah,
Wow.
surprising how some people got in and some people.
Yeah.
There probably is a good deal of connection business too going on.
Well, you know, later on certainly was. You know, by the early 50s, you either had to be a woman or black or an airline pilot's son to get on, primarily in that period. Now, you see, by that time, by age 28, the airlines weren't talking to you anymore. That was.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
I see.
Yeah, there's discrimination, maybe you could call it, whatever, but by age 20,